Everybody up, Barefield Speedway. Let's see you on your feet. The super lates coming to green this time. Everybody up. Let's get them going for 100 laps. Steve Needles slow coming to green. We're green flag off turn 4. Ryan Ross was slow, fell behind at the start. We're off and racing. Carter, Zent, Rohrig down the backstretch. Eric Lee, the 5 car, was very high. Now the Blunt racers side by side as Needles on the bottom. Up top the 16 Ross. You'll tell the Blunt racing cars apart by the hood. The Toyota hood is Brian Ross. He goes by Steve Needles. Ross busts through the field to lead early last year. Is he going to try that strategy again? Off turn 4, it's Jimmy Carter leading on Larry Zent. Carter, Zent, Rohrig, Long already the top 4. Then it's Jeff Gannis. Scott Hance moving up early is the 37 of Seneker. Seneker got caught playing the strategy game last year. He's not going to take a chance tonight. He's charging early. Jeff Parr hanging in there at the back of the field with no practice laps today. It's Jimmy Carter, the race leader, in car 28, off turn 4. Happy Jack Landis getting shuffled back to the field. Landis quickly shuffled back to 10th after starting in 6th. Carter, Zent, Rohrig, and Long still the top 4. Here's Scott Hance trying to make a move on his former teammate, Jeff Gannis. Gannis in the 18 and Hance in the 72 were teammates on that Great Lakes team. And Gannis deciding to move on. Back up front, Larry Zent closes in on race leader Jimmy Carter. Top 3 qualifiers. Running nose to tail. Seneker, Needles, and Ross. Top 4 have separated a bit. We'll take you back to the field. It's Carter early. Zent runs 2nd. Rohrig 3rd. John Long 4th. Jeff Gannis 5th. Scott Hance is 6th place. 7th, the 37 of Terry Seneker. 8th place, the 16 of Brian Ross. 9th, the 16N of Steve Needles. And 10th, the 10 of Jack Landis. Outside the top 10, 11th is the 41 of Brent Jack. 12th, the 5 of Eric Lee. Then 13th is the 15 car of Gary Richard. 14th, the 1 of Todd Courier. 15th is 32 Josh Summer. 16th is 60 of John Gerhardt. And then 17th is the number 9 of Jeff Parr. Back up front now, nose to tail, Jimmy Carter and Larry Zent. Lightning Larry, a little bobble out of turn 2. They are 50-50 girls are working their way down towards turn 4. That's Jessica and Shelby. Driver settling in for the long 100-lap go. Battle at the back of the pack. Jeff Parr trying to drive around the 60 of John Gerhardt back to turn 1. Those 2 guys with about 1,000 laps of competition against each other now battle down the backstretch. Still Carter and Zent 1st and 2nd. Things starting to tighten up a bit as Jack Landis is chased back down. Fast qualifier Steve Needles. Jeff Parr and John Gerhardt side by side out of 2. Move Jeff Parr up a spot. Still Carter with the lead over Larry Zent. Zent driving deeper into the corners than Carter, making a challenge for the race lead. Lapped cars coming up for the race leaders. The 9 of Jeff Parr looking very loose. 60 of John Gerhardt starting to run around the top of the racetrack. Gerhardt might be having a little brake problems. He's driving deep into the corner. Hand out the window. Gerhardt might be hitting pit side. He does. John Gerhardt in car number 60. First car to head towards the pits. Cut brake for the Angola area driver. Now Larry Zent starts to look to the outside on Jimmy Carter for the race lead. Off turn 4. Big bobble by Zent. Carter hangs on. Third place, J.R. Rohrig starting to close in as Carter starting to slow his pace a little bit. Then it's Long. Gannis has gapped Scott Hance by about 4 or 5 car lengths. Then a long gap back to the guys who are playing it cool early. Seneker, Ross, Needles. Those 3 drivers. Perhaps going on a strategy trying to save their tires till late in the go. Back up front, Carter comes up on the slow car of Jeff Parr. Back to 1 and 2. Now working slower traffic. Carter to the inside on Parr down the backstretch. And he will make the move to turn 3. Drops Jeff Parr off the lead lap. Zet comes along with him. Zet and Parr, a little contact up off the corner. Now J.R. Rohrig working the lapper. Parr up in the second groove, out of the way. As Carter and Zet again rejoin the fight for first. Eric Lee in car number 5. Coming up behind the blue 41 of Brent Jack. That's 11th place. Now in question off turn 4. Top 6 starting to bunch up. Rohrig is now up with the race leaders. John Long closing as well. Carter has slowed his pace a bit, and that's letting J.R. Rohrig and the rest of the top 6 close in. Now Rohrig trying to take a look on Zent. Zent's been kicking the car a little sideways. Going to abuse that right rear tire if he's not careful. Now Hans gets by, the lapper of Parr. Well, you can tell what these cars do as they go by. You can get an idea of the amount of wind these cars move around. Check out the flag stand. Our photographer, Mariah, you can see her long brunette hair flapping in the breeze as these cars go by. Carter still the race lead. Zet sideways out of 2 and spins it. Larry Zet spinning out of turn number 2. Caution out. Carter brings him up to speed through 3 and 4. We're back to green. 22 in, 78 to go. Leaning on each other down the front stretch as Rohrig and Carter back to turn 1. Way deep into the corner went the leaders, but both of them hang on, and on the move comes the 72 of Scott Hans. Hans up the inside alongside his former teammate Gannis. Gannis thinks about 3 wide off turn 4, nothing there. Rohrig and Carter squeezing each other down the front stretch. Carter goes back in front. Rohrig with a nice big O tire donut in the side of the 25 car. And remember this from a year ago. Now Hans 3rd, John Long 4th. Long had a heated battle with Hans a year ago. Look out, down the front stretch, Terry Seneker and Jeff Gannis get together. Both drivers keep going, but a close call there. It's Jimmy Carter back out front in car 28. Rohrig 2nd, Hans to 3rd. Then John Long 4th. Long having trouble keeping the car on the bottom of the racetrack. Gannis is 5th. Then comes the 37 of Seneker, the 16 fast qualifier Needles. 16 Brian Ross, 10 Jack Landis. Brent Jack after a pit stop starting to bust back through the field in car 41 to the inside of Terry Fisher. He flashes by. Top 3 break away. Carter, Rohrig, and Hans the top 3. Then Long in 4th. 5th is Gannis. 6th is Terry Seneker. Jeff Gannis and the Brian Short 18 had a look to the outside on the 86 of John Long. Now Hans rolls up on the 25 of J.R. Rohrig. Jeff Gannis in the number 18 Brian Short machine, trying to do it the hard way around the 86 of John Long. Side by side, 4th place, Gannis on the outside in the white car. Down low, the blue and black of John Long. Give it to Jeff Gannis, flashing around the outside, now 4th. Jeff Gannis saw him a lot in practice today, working on that second groove, running around the top of the racetrack, knowing that's where you're going to pass tonight. See if he can make it work off turn 4. Comes up behind Scott Hansen to 72 again. Jimmy Carter again pulls away from the field, the number 28 car. 70 laps to go. Still a long way in this one for Jimmy Carter in car 28. Last year, the fast qualifiers waited till about halfway until they really started to make their move. See how they work it this year. It's still Jimmy Carter out front. Ganis starting to work on the 72 of Scott Hance. He drives deep into 1 and 2 and again tries the outside. Happy Jack Landis in car number 10 up behind Brian Ross. Ross was the rabbit in the field a year ago. Tonight, he's the one laying back playing the strategy game. Here's Ganis again trying to roll around the outside of 72 Scott Hance. And Jack Landis trying to move around the number 3 qualifier Brian Ross. Ganis now a crossover move off turn 4. Down the inside on Scott Hance to turn 1. Can he make it stick? Ganis with an outside in move. Pulls alongside the 72 of Hance. Down the backstretch of turn 3. Hance deep into turn 3. Drifts up the racetrack. Here comes Ganis underneath him off turn 4. Side by side for third. Give Jeff Ganis the spot by half a car length back to turn 1. And Ganis takes over third in car number 18. Jeff Ganis might have been just a little bit personal there as he drives around his former teammate Scott Hance. It's still long fifth in the 87, then the 37 of Seneca, 16 and Needles, 16 of Ross, and the 10 of Landis. And suddenly Brian Ross has picked up the lap times. Brian Ross in the second of the 16 cars pulls back away from Jack Landis and closes on the cars in front of him. It's still Jimmy Carter, the race leader. J.R. Rohrig made a bid for the lead off the restart. Now settles down about 4 car lengths behind Jimmy Carter. Then Ganis third, Hance in fourth. A little bit of a chess match at this point of the race. Down the front stretch, fast qualifier Steve Needles to the inside of Terry Seneca Jr. Needles in the 16N trying to take the spot away from Terry Seneca down to turn 3 and 4. Brings Brian Ross with him. The fast qualifier Needles. Just like that to 6th, Ross to 7th. Terry Seneca Jr. back to 8th place. Some strategy working for these drivers. How much do you use? How soon? These tires will go away in the second half of the race. The drivers who have charged early, are they going to have enough for the back half of the race when the drivers that have coasted start to charge? You're going to have comers and goers in this one. The goers out front right now. Carter, Rohrig, Ganis, and Hance. Then the hounds chasing the hares. 86 long, 16 Needles, 16 Ross, and Seneca in the 37 has drifted well back now. It's a 4-car fight up front. Jimmy Carter, J.R. Rohrig, Jeff Ganis, and Scott Hance. Ganis continue to run that second groove in the 18 car, trying to make something happen up there. Give a shout out to 10th place Todd Courier in car number 1. First time he's ever seen this place. He's 10th place for the former Clash winner. Now Hance to the inside of Ganis trying to retake third. Behind them, Steve Needles to the inside. He'll look to take 5th away from John Long. Steve Needles has pushed the button. It's time to go. Here comes the fast qualifier. Needles in the Blunt Chevrolet down the front stretch, now 5th place. Ganis up in the second groove, going to try to roar around Rohrig. Suddenly, the drivers all pushing the button, saying it's time to go. Here comes Ganis around the outside of Rohrig for second, up on Carter for the race lead. Give Jeff Ganis second, back to turn 1. Traffic ahead, needs to make the move now. Ganis to second, little sideways out of turn 2, couldn't make the pass. And here comes fast qualifier Steve Needles. And suddenly Terry Seneca steps on the button. He charges up behind Ross and Long. Ganis for the race lead, back to turn 1. Jeff Ganis rolls around the outside, out of turn number 2. Wheel to wheel in the backstretch. Ganis out of shape, saves it. Carter down low, Ganis up high. Still battle off turn 4 for the race lead. Give it to Jeff Ganis. Ganis around the outside, a Jimmy Carter, new race leader. Rohrig in third. Hance in fourth, then comes Needles. Don't forget the 50-50 tickets. We got Jessica and Shelby right here in front of you selling the tickets. Somebody's going to take some good money home tonight. Right now, it's Jeff Ganis with the big lead. Lap traffic ahead for Jeff Ganis, who pulls away from Jimmy Carter, now by 6 car lengths. Rohrig is third. Here's Hance trying to take the outside groove. Ganis up on the lap car, the 9 of Jeff Parr. Ganis looks to the outside on Jeff Parr. Down the backstretch at turn number 3 and 4. Well, if they haven't stepped on the gas yet, here's their signal. Here's your sign. We're halfway. Halfway home for Jeff Ganis. And now the race begins. Halfway home. Who's got what left? Time to show the cards. Ganis with the lead, working traffic. Here's Hance around the outside. Around Rohrig. Now works Carter for second. Steve Needles on the charge as well. Lap traffic ahead for the side-by-side battle of Hance and Carter back to turn 1. Parr runs about the middle of the groove. 3 wide, almost out of turn number 2. Hance down the backstretch. He's got position. He'll clear the lapped car on the outside. Carter now boxed in down low. Here comes Rohrig. Carter off turn 4, trying to force his way by Parr. Can't do it down the front stretch. Hance now second. Rohrig going to try to roll the outside. Carter with room underneath Parr. And down the backstretch, race leader works Josh Summers as well. Lap traffic getting in the mix. Summers goes down a lap to Ganis. Parr still hanging on the outside. Carter will clear him. Now comes Rohrig. Terry Seneker Jr. almost runs over Brian Ross back in turn 1. Scott Hance. He works under Summers, and now the top 2 have cleared the lap traffic. Next car more than a straightaway ahead. Todd Courier in car number 1 closing in on that 5 of Eric Lee, and also the 10 of Jack Landis. Starting to come to him a little bit. Big pack of traffic bottled up behind the lapped car. 32 Josh Summers. It's Carter, Rohrig, Needles, Ross, Seneker, and Parr get together down the front stretch. Everybody keeps going. Jimmy Carter still trying to get by the 32 of Josh Summers to be clean in 3rd place. Now he'll do so off of turn 4. Long time until the next lap traffic. And Jeff Ganis and Scott Hance working the lapped cars have gapped the rest of the fast qualifiers by quite a big margin. Jeff Parr a little off the pace into turn 3 and 4. Jeff Parr off the pace out of turn number 4. Hand out the window. Might be the end of the night for the Orland, Indiana driver. Brave run. Got here late. Hung with the big boys for quite a while and now goes pit side. Battle down the backstretch, the 41 of Brent Jack fighting with the 15 of Terry Fisher Jr. Those 2 guys side by side now for the last 3 laps, racing for 11th place. The Blunt team starts to fight it out. Needles in the Chevy, Ross in the Toyota. Still bottled up back in 5th and 6th. It's Jeff Ganis with a big race lead in car number 18. Scott Hance can only watch from 2nd place. Then a long way back to early leader Jimmy Carter. J.R. Rohrig sits 4th. Fast qualifier Steve Needles has only made it up to 5th so far. Laps starting to tick away for the fast cars. And just like last year, this race in a long green flag run started on lap 22. Passing lap 60, and this one, if it goes green the rest of the distance, is going to be hard for the fast qualifiers to get up and mix it up for the win. Ganis continuing to charge. Comes up on the 15 car, easily past Terry Fisher Jr., who pulls over and gives him room. Hance now half a straightaway back in 2nd. It's a full straightaway back to 3rd place, Jimmy Carter. Terry Seneker Jr.'s gotten beat around a bit, trying to work his way through the field. Now to the inside of Brian Ross. Terry Seneker Jr. still needing him on a charge into 37. Side by side for 4th. Steve Needles down the backstretch. Also side by side for 6th. Needles around the outside of Rohrig. He'll take over 4th. Terry Seneker and Brian Ross in contact out of turn 4. Seneker very slow down the front stretch. Seneker and Ross got together. Ross keeps going and Seneker drops back again. Third time, Senecers tried to work the inside on somebody and got together and lost ground. This time it costs him. Now way behind the race leader is Terry Seneker and might be heading for the pits. What a heartbreaker for the Zent team. What a heartbreaker for the Zent team heading to the pits. Now the 37 of Terry Seneker. Brent Jack now to the pits in car number 41. Still with the race lead is the number 18 car of Jeff Gannis. Hance runs second. Carter third. Steve Needles fourth. J.R. Roerig fifth. Sixth is Brian Ross. Seventh is Jack Landis. Eric Lee eighth. Todd Courier ninth. 30 laps to go. 30 laps to go. 30 laps remaining. .30 laps remaining for race leader Jeff Gannis, now 29. Still Gannis out front. Hance runs second. Battle for third. Around the outside comes Steve Needles. Needles around the outside of the Carter machine runs now third. Carter fourth, Roerig fifth, Ross in sixth place. Jack Landis seventh. Eric Lee the 5 runs eighth. Todd Courier ninth. TJ Fisher continuing to get lapped by the race leaders in the 15. Now Josh Summers about to be lapped for the second time by race leader Jeff Gannis. Now Gannis trying to work by Summers, had to get heavily out of the throttle, and now clears him easily down to 1 and 2. There'll be 25 laps to go this time by. 25 laps to go. Jeff Gannis still the race leader in car 18. Hance is second. Steve Needles is third, but gonna need a caution to have a shot at this one. Jimmy Carter fourth. J.R. Roerig fifth. Sixth place is Brian Ross. Then it's Jack Landis seventh. Eric Lee eighth. Good fight now. Eighth place, Eric Lee. Getting challenged from behind by Todd Courier. Problems for J.R. Roerig into turn number 1. He drifts up the racetrack and loses a couple of spots. Roerig suddenly with a problem in car 25. Might be starting to have a little brake failure. These guys have been a long time without a yellow, all the way back to lap 22. And still with the lead is the 18 of Jeff Gannis. 20 to go. Gannis the lead. Hance in second. 20 laps to go for Jeff Gannis as he comes back to the start-finish line. Gannis, 10 miles to $10,000. Back to turn 1 and 2. Scott Hance a long way back in second, and closing fast is the 16 of Steve Needles. Needles running in third. Jimmy Carter, early leader, fourth. Brian Ross has not been able to get any higher than 5th tonight. J.R. Rohrig has drifted back to 6th place. And it's Landis, Lee, and Courier all still the lead lap. Terry Fisher Jr. unofficially the first car 1 lap down, then 2 laps down to 32 of Josh Summers. Jeff Gannis continues to stretch the lead in that Brian Short number 18. And keep in mind, folks, this is the first time he's ever driven the car. And Gannis trying to bring home the big money. Inside 20 to go. Hance a long way back, but getting caught up by the 16 of Needles. Down the front stretch, Jimmy Carter comes up on the 32 of Josh Summers, tries to work the inside. Jeff Gannis has got to be saying, guys, don't do anything silly. Don't bring out a yellow, and this money's mine. Eric Lee. Race leader still the 18 of Jeff Gannis. Scott Hance riding second. Laps to go for race leader Jeff Gannis. Gannis with 12 to go. Now 11. To go for Jeff Gannis. Gannis now 10 laps to go. Gannis coming by. Still Jeff Gannis, the race leader in car number 18. Comes up on the 32 one more time of Josh Summers. Gannis with about a half-track lead over the 72 of Scott Hance and the 16 of Steve Needles. Still Gannis the race lead, closing in on the 5 to go mark. He comes up behind the 10 of Jack Landis. Todd Courier has picked up another spot. Five to go this time by for the number 18 of Jeff Gannis. Down the front stretch, Steve Needles tries to take second away from Scott Hance. "95 laps now in the books for the number 18 of Jeff Gannis. Brian Ross in the 16, still trying to pick up fourth around the 28 of Jimmy Carter. Four to go. 4 laps to go for Jeff Gannis. Gannis off turn 4, still a huge lead, 2 laps to go. 2 to go for Jeff Gannis. He's up behind the number 10 of Happy Jack Landis. Hans still second, Needles third. Then fourth, the 72, 28 of Carter, and the 16 of Brian Ross. Lap to go for Jeff Gannis. Race fans, how about you get up on your feet? They're going to have done 78 laps straight. Jeff Gannis down the backstretch. Coming around this time, looking to take home $10,000. Fort Wayne, give a hand up on your feet for the 18. Your winner of the Kenny Wallace 100 going to be Jeff Gannis. Gannis brings home the money in the Brian Short, car number 18. Here comes the fight behind him. It's going to be Scott Hans for second, Steve Needles third. Jimmy Carter will take fourth. Then it's Brian Ross, J.R. Rohrig, Eric Lee, Todd Courier, and Jack Landis. That's the way they're going to finish this one. Steve Needles, third place in the 16N. Second, the 72 of Scott Hansen picking up the win. We're going to go talk to him, your race winner, the car number 18 of Jeff Gannis.